The Cold War wasn't just a battle of ideologies, it was a race of technology, innovation, and the ever-looming potential for global conflict. In the skies, this tension was embodied by cutting-edge war machines, none more iconic than the American F-14 Tomcat and the suite of Soviet-built jets it was designed to counter. Born out of necessity, the F-14 was a response to a shifting aerial threat environment. Following the Vietnam War, it became clear to U.S. military strategists that the next-generation fighter had to combine speed, range, and powerful radar systems, with the flexibility to engage at both long and close range. The result was the Grumman F-14 Tomcat, a twin-engine, variable sweep-wing fighter that quickly became the pride of the U.S. Navy. With its first flight in 1970, the F-14 was built to dominate the skies above the oceans. Its swing-wing design allowed for incredible maneuverability at low speeds during dogfights, and exceptional aerodynamic efficiency at high speeds, exceeding Mach 2. Its most significant technological advantage was the AWG-9 radar system, paired with the AIM-54 Phoenix missile. This combination gave the F-14 the unprecedented ability to track and engage up to 6 targets simultaneously at over 100 miles away, a capability that Soviet designs of the time could not match. The Tomcat was a true fleet defender, designed to protect aircraft carrier groups from long-range missile attacks launched by enemy bombers and interceptors. On the other side of the Iron Curtain, the Soviets were developing aircraft designed for brute force and speed, often at the expense of electronics and versatility. Fighters like the MiG-21, MiG-23, and later the MiG-29 and Su-27 were fast, rugged, and built in large numbers. The MiG-21, for instance, was a small, agile delta-wing interceptor that became one of the most produced jet fighters in history. Though limited in radar and missile range, it was deadly in close combat and could be launched quickly in mass formations. The MiG-23, with its own swing-wing design, was the Soviet attempt to create a versatile multi-role fighter, but it suffered from poor handling and limited situational awareness compared to the F-14. The real test of these machines didn't come in Europe, but in the Middle East and over the waters of the Persian Gulf, where proxies and alliances brought American-made and Soviet-made jets into direct confrontation. The most famous example is Iran, which received 79 F-14s before the 1979 revolution. During the Iran-Iraq War, Iranian F-14s, operated by skilled pilots and equipped with Phoenix missiles, racked up dozens of kills against Iraqi MiG-21s, MiG-23s, and Mirage F-1s. Despite sanctions and limited access to parts, Iran managed to keep its F-14s flying and effectively used them to secure air superiority during key stages of the conflict. Encounters in other regions further illustrated the technological edge of the Tomcat. During operations over Libya in the 1980s, F-14s encountered Soviet-built Libyan jets, including Su-22 fitters and MiG-23s. In both the 1981 and 1989 Gulf of Sidra incidents, U.S. Navy F-14s successfully engaged and shot down multiple Libyan aircraft without suffering any losses. The engagements were clinical and swift, with the F-14's radar and missiles giving American pilots a lethal first strike capability. The Soviet jets simply could not match the combination of long-range detection, advanced weapons, and combat training employed by the Tomcat crews. But it wasn't just about raw technology. Training and doctrine played a significant role. U.S. Navy aviators underwent rigorous preparation, including time at the famous Top Gun school, where dogfighting skills were honed to razor sharpness. Soviet and Soviet-trained pilots often lacked this level of individualized training, instead relying on rigid doctrine and ground control interception tactics. This often put them at a disadvantage when forced into beyond visual range combat or dynamic air engagements that required initiative and adaptability. As time progressed into the late 1980s and early 1990s, the Soviet Union introduced more capable fighters like the MiG-29 Fulcrum and Su-27 Flanker. These aircraft were more modern, featuring better radar, fly-by-wire control systems, and increased agility. In simulated dogfights and joint exercises following the Cold War, such as those between NATO and former Warsaw Pact states, these newer Soviet designs proved to be formidable opponents. The Su-27, in particular, with its large size, powerful engines, and long range, was seen as the spiritual peer of the F-14 in terms of raw performance. However, it still lacked the advanced avionics and radar missile systems that made the Tomcat so lethal at long range. Despite the rise of these new Soviet aircraft, the F-14 continued to evolve. Upgrades to the radar, integration of precision-guided munitions, and improvements in avionics helped keep it relevant into the 2000s. In its final years, the F-14 even took on a ground attack role in conflicts like Afghanistan and Iraq, proving its versatility. Meanwhile, many Soviet-era aircraft were either retired or modernized into new variants that continued to fly under different flags. Ultimately, the battle between the F-14 Tomcat and Soviet-built jets was more than just a clash of aircraft, it was a reflection of two fundamentally different approaches to air power. The Americans prioritized technological superiority, integration of advanced systems, and pilot training. The Soviets emphasized mass production, ruggedness, and tactical doctrine shaped by land-based warfare. In nearly every recorded engagement, the F-14 came out ahead, a testament to its design and the skill of the men who flew it. Yet the Soviet legacy lives on in modern Russian aircraft, just as the F-14's spirit endures in its successors like the F-A-18 and F-35. Though the F-14 was retired from U.S. service in 2006, it remains a legend, an apex predator of its time, forever linked to the Cold War era and the aerial chess match that played out between East and West high above the clouds. The F-14 Tomcat's unmatched long-range radar and missile capabilities, combined with superior pilot training, consistently gave it the edge over Soviet-built jets in real-world combat and Cold War confrontations. At the heart of this advantage was the powerful -9 Aruban Florens radar system, which was the first of its kind capable of tracking up to 24 targets simultaneously and engaging 6 of them at once with AIM-54 Phoenix missiles. This technological leap allowed the Tomcat to dominate aerial engagements well beyond visual range, something Soviet jets of the 1970s and 1980s struggled to counter. Soviet radar systems, while robust and improving over time, were typically designed for interception with ground control assistance and lacked the autonomous long-range detection and fire control abilities that the F-14 possessed onboard. The Phoenix missile itself was revolutionary, able to reach targets more than 100 miles away at speeds exceeding Mach 5. It gave F-14 crews a decisive first strike advantage in any air confrontation. In contrast, Soviet-built fighters like the MiG-21 and MiG-23, though agile and quick to scramble, were limited in engagement range and relied heavily on outdated infrared or semi-active radar-guided missiles. This meant that in any engagement where an F-14 detected the enemy first, it could often eliminate the threat before the Soviet pilot was even aware of the Tomcat's presence. These dynamics were not just theoretical. They played out in operational theaters like the Persian Gulf, where Iranian F-14s engaged and destroyed numerous Soviet-supplied Iraqi aircraft using this exact advantage, sometimes from ranges the Iraqi pilots couldn't detect or respond to. In addition to its long-range strike capabilities, the F-14's variable sweep wing allowed it to operate efficiently across a wide range of speeds and altitudes. During low-speed, high-angle dogfights, it could sweep its wings forward for better lift and agility, while at high-speed intercept missions, it could sweep the wings back for reduced drag and superior acceleration. This flexibility made the F-14 adaptable to both close-quarters engagements and high-speed chases, a versatility many Soviet fighters lacked. The MiG-23, which also featured variable geometry wings, was mechanically impressive but aerodynamically less refined and prone to handling issues at extreme flight envelopes. Soviet aircraft like the MiG-29 and Su-27 would later challenge the Tomcat's maneuverability, but by then, the F-14 had already proven itself in real-world encounters. Beyond the hardware, pilot training was a major force multiplier for the F-14. U.S. Navy pilots were trained under the demanding Top Gun program, where emphasis was placed on situational awareness, fluid tactics, and real-time decision-making in high-stakes dogfighting scenarios. In contrast, Soviet doctrine prioritized ground-directed vectoring and strict adherence to combat protocols, leaving less room for pilot initiative and adaptive response. This rigidity often led to disadvantages in dynamic air combat situations, particularly when radar jamming, evasive maneuvering, or deception tactics were employed by U.S. pilots. The U.S. Navy's investment in pilot proficiency, electronic warfare training, and live-fire exercises meant that F-14 crews entered combat with superior readiness and combat reflexes. This disparity in technology and training became most evident in actual engagements such as the Gulf of Sidra incidents, where F-14s intercepted and defeated Libyan pilots flying Soviet-built aircraft with surgical precision. The American fighters used superior radar awareness and disciplined coordination to eliminate threats with minimal risk to themselves. Even in close-range fights, the F-14's powerful twin engines and agile control surfaces allowed it to hold its own, though it was primarily designed to avoid such engagements by neutralizing the enemy from a distance. In situations where the fight became visual, the F-14's weapon suite, ranging from the versatile AIM-7 Sparrow to the agile AIM-9 Sidewinder, allowed it to respond with lethal efficiency. Moreover, the Tomcat's operational integration with U.S. Navy battle groups gave it the strategic depth to act as a critical part of layered defense systems. It wasn't operating alone, it was networked with E-2 Hawkeye early warning aircraft, Aegis cruisers, and an array of sensors that allowed it to operate with a situational awareness far greater than what Soviet pilots could typically access. Soviet aircraft were often launched in reactive posture, guided by radar stations or AWACS of limited capability, and many of their intercept missions were limited in time and scope due to fuel constraints or radar limitations. The logistical and strategic support surrounding F-14 operations amplified its already significant tactical advantages, allowing for extended patrols, coordinated threat interceptions, and seamless command and control capabilities during missions.